Hello friends, and welcome to the War of 1812. A series of laws, later known as the Restrictive System, sought to prevent the use of British license and restrict imports and exports. Most notable among the laws was the Embargo Act of 1807, which forbade all American exports. Britain also interfered with U.S. trade by the imprisonment of about 6,000 American sailors to work on British ships between 1803 and 1812. The day after the Senate followed the House of Representatives in a voting to declare war against Great Britain, President James Madison signs the Declaration into law and the War of 1812 begins. The American War Declaration, opposed by a sizable minority in Congress, had been called in response to the British economic blockade of France, the induction of American seamen into the British Royal Navy against their will, and the British support of Indian tribes along the Great Lakes frontier. A fraction of Congress, known as the War Hawks, had been advocating war with Britain for several years and not hidden their hopes that a U.S. invasion of Canada might result in significant territorial land gains for the U.S. A British force under Major General Isaac Brock, with Native American allies under Shawnee leader Tecumseh, used bluff and deception to intimidate U.S. Brigadier General William Hull into surrendering the fort and town of Detroit, Michigan, along with his dispirited army, which actually outnumbered the victorious British and Indians. 9 vessels of the United States Navy defeated and captured 6 vessels of the British Royal Navy. This ensured American control of the lake for the rest of the war, which in turn allowed Americans to recover Detroit and win the Battle of Thames to break the Indian Confederation of Tecumseh. It was one of the biggest naval battles of the War of 1812. In an American victory in the War of 1812 against Tecumseh Confederacy and their British allies, it took place on October 5, 1813, in Upper Canada near Chatham. The British lost control of southwestern Ontario. As a result of the battle, Tecumseh was killed and his Confederacy largely fell apart. The Battle of Malcolm's Mill was the last battle in the War of 1812, fought in the Canadas. A force of American mounted troops overran and scattered a force of Canadian militia. The battle was fought on November 6, 1814, near the village of Oakland in Brant County, Upper Canada, and was a part of a series of battles fought by the American Brigadier General Duncan MacArthur on an extended raid into Upper Canada known as MacArthur's Raid on Dudley's Raid. Marching over 200 miles into Canada, the Americans returned to Detroit on November 17th after 11 days of raiding the Ontario Peninsula. The Treaty of Ghent was the peace treaty that ended the War of 1812 between the U.S. and the U.K. It took effect in February 1815. Both sides signed it on December 24, 1814, in the city of Ghent, United Netherlands. The treaty restored relations between two parties to status quo ante bellum by restoring the pre-war borders of June 1812. The battle took place 18 days after signing the Treaty of Ghent, which formally ended the War of 1812 on December 24, 1814, though it would not be ratified by the United States. As news of the agreement had not yet reached the United States from Europe, despite a large British advantage in numbers, training, and experience, the American forces defeated a poorly executed assault in slightly more than 30 minutes. The Americans suffered roughly 70 casualties, while the British suffered roughly 2,000, including the deaths of the commanding general, Major General Sir Edward Packham, and his second-in-command, Major General Samuel Gibbs.